It's not often that the Benedictine nuns of the Conventus of Our Lady of Consolation leave their monastery. It's even rarer for them to move monasteries entirely. But earlier this year, the nuns swapped the Victorian splendour of their Worcestershire Abbey for a sleek and sustainable 21st century alternative in North Yorkshire. The community, which has 22 professed nuns and 2 novices, invited the outside world into the private quarters of their eco-friendly monastery for the first, and probably last time, to talk about their new homes and lives.
In the old days, the idea was that you weren't even supposed to look out of a window, I think, in the really old days. Some of them were frosted over.
And here you have balconies.
Yeah, oh yes.
Yeah,
each
you have your own private balcony,
yes,
and you have floor-to-ceiling windows pretty much.
Yes, yes, and both the windows open.
Okay.
So you can open it out onto this view and see the sheep and the deer and the stars at night. There's not so much light pollution here.
Our cells are beautiful. They're spaces that you want to be in, that you want to spend time in and pray. And that can only be for our good, really.
It's an investment in the future. We were building a monastery for the 21st century. And yes, okay, they weren't cheap features, but they're going to pay for themselves in the long run, because obviously you know, oil is very expensive, whereas wood chip boilers are not as expensive to run as oil is. But also it's much better for the environment. I mean, we're rejoicing in God's creation here, the beauty of the site, and what we want to do is give back to creation something that we have received, and we're not destroying it by burning oil and what have you.
It's part of the Christian spirituality to try and respect the environment, God's creation. It's different terms depending on who's describing it. We would call it God's creation. Environmentalists will call it ecology, but it amounts to the same thing.
We were wanting to use something that was much more sustainable. Solar panels to help heat our water, rainwater harvesting, which serve our toilets and our laundry. So it means that we're recycling the rainwater, and then our reed beds, which is breaking down the sewerage.
I keep telling people they are a credit to their faith, and they really are. They're just so generous and so intelligent, and a fantastic sense of humour, and they've just been a real pleasure to work with. And of course they are the ultimate end user, because they're here all the time. So they're really, really concerned to get the building as they want it. And of course the nuns think that God is everywhere, so they're not quite so interested in spaces that evoke religious feelings as perhaps lay people are.
We needed and wanted somewhere that was smaller and more easy to run than the Worcester Monastery, which was much too big for us and much too expensive to run. So we wanted all the best quality features that would enable us to live more peacefully and be more financially sensible.
It's so modern, there isn't a Gothic arch to be seen. It's high tech, it takes quite a lot of getting used to. But I do like the architecture, especially inside the monastery, within. The garth particularly, I love the garth.
What was really important to us that everyone the elderly and the sick could get to where the community are. That's a reality now. Nobody has to negotiate anything, which is impossible, which means you can't get to be where everyone else is, and that's important for our community life.
The one thing that hasn't changed is our monastic life, and that was the whole point. Not to spend all our time trying to maintain and look after buildings, because that wasn't the reason why we entered the monastery. We entered the monastery for God and our monastic life, which leads us to God.
Yes, people think that nuns have it easy. What do we do all day? And we've left the cares of the world behind, and that's absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. And there are pressures and difficulties we have that people outside don't have. But having made this huge move, yes, it is a sacrifice, and it's a sort of bereavement too, when you leave something behind, like you leave a person behind or you lose a person. So, but where there's love, there's always sacrifice, always, always, and that's painful. But it's also life-giving, and this is what I sincerely hope this new venture will bring for us. But not just for us. We're not just here for ourselves. We're here for you and for everybody. For that is why we're here. And we're just ordinary people trying to do an extraordinary thing.